as I was saying, Joy Taylor, every dog has its day. And since I'm a big dog, I've got 2 days. Okay. So now.
You just called yourself a dog?
Yeah, I'm a dog. Yeah, I'm a big dog, a big one.
Kevin Durant is 6'11", who can pull up from 40. Okay. This brother is on that level. I'm talking about offensively.
Do you think you're better than Jarrell Revis is right now?
I'm better than you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Lowdown Podcast / the Mark Brown Show on YouTube. It's Lowdown on Apple, Spotify. That's the audio version. Just want to say welcome back. I know it's been a couple weeks, but here we are. And I got a very special guest on the show. He's a senior NFL writer on Yahoo Sports. His name is Terez Paylor. Terez, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, Mark. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. My day just got better. The fact that you were able to get on the podcast, man, that's made my day right there. That alone just made my day.
That's nice of you to say, man. I'm honored to be on, man. Thank you for having me.
Oh, anytime. And I see you got I like the decoration behind you. I see that football with your name on it. I see, a book collection. Yeah. See, I just got a plain background, because I'm, working my way up. So I'm a cheapskate.
Well, it took me a little while to upgrade the background, so I think I've been doing this for years without a nice one. So I finally had to get to it. It takes a little time.
It's there, but it's your sewing, that's for sure. So to begin with, so how long have you been a senior NFL writer for Yahoo?
Since April 2018, my man. And before that, I was a senior NFL. I'm sorry. Before that, I covered the Chiefs. I was a beat writer with the Kansas City Star. So been covering football, pro football for the last 7 years.
Oh, how about that? And I know there's a lot of things that have changed the past 7 years, not just with technology, but in football. In terms of 7 years ago, Patrick Mahomes was in high school. So
that's the way the business moves, man. Like the average career is like 3 years, for the players. So, you start covering this league and you start looking back and you're like, man, there's a lot of dudes that were in high school when I started, and it really just stacks on you real quick like that,
Oh, it really does. I bet it does, especially knowing that you've been in the business for that, quite some time now. I'm pretty sure you just see coaches come and go. It's always been that way. Coaches don't stay in one place. They always move around. So it's like you see that you probably within your 7 years, especially when you were in Kansas City prior to coming to Yahoo in 2018. So what is that? That's 5 years if I did my math correct. So you were covering the Chiefs for 5 years. So it's
before that I covered the University of Missouri for like a year and a half. And before that I covered high school. So I've been in Kansas City 14 years now.
How about that?
It took a little bit,
Oh, hey, you're still working your way up. I mean, the fact that you made progress, that's all that matters, right? That's all that matters at the end of the day, no matter how long it takes.
Sure.
You're an inspiration to me. So, I'm just now getting started. So, I'm going to work my way up just like you did. But I just know.
I appreciate that, man. Stay at it. You just got to keep chopping, If you're really passionate about it, things will work out for you. Things in this business work out for people who are passionate about it and don't quit. That's the biggest thing. You just got to stay with it,
Yes, sir. I'll keep that in mind. So in order to begin with, speaking of the NFL, so we already completed week 1. Week 2 is on its way. And so how are you feeling? How are you feeling about those week 1 matches? I mean, we saw the Cowboys lose to the Rams. You saw the Philadelphia Eagles blow a 17-point lead to the Washington football team, which nobody expected, right? So you saw that happen. You saw Washington actually. And then I saw, if you look at the NFC East standings, I saw the Washington football team as of now, even though it's just week 1, but they're the best team in the NFC East because they're the only team with the win.
Yeah, I thought that Washington game was instructional, man, because if Philly can't protect the quarterback, they're not going to accomplish what we think they can this year. Meanwhile, I think a lot of people assume that Washington was just going to be bad this year. And, don't get me wrong, it's not a good team, but the one strength is a place you better be good at in this league if you want to win games, and that's the defensive front. Between Chase Young and Jonathan Allen, those guys are awesome. So, that's not a team you want to get down to, or that's not a team you definitely want to be throwing a ball around against. Like, you want to try to run the ball on those guys and not, or at least be able to pass protect at a high level. Otherwise, what can happen to the Eagles can happen to you too, man. So I thought that was pretty instructional what happened to the Eagles. They got to get better on the offensive line, but also, Washington, they can beat you if you're not careful.
That's true. It sure showed them. Plus, think about it. New coaching staff, Ron Rivera, for crying out loud. It's like, and the thing is, huge props to him because not for being a good coach, but also the fact that he's battling cancer at the moment.
I know.
He's still coaching. That's an inspiration for any aspiring coaches out there. Really anybody. You don't necessarily have to be a football coach. The fact that this dude is fighting cancer while he's still coaching, it kind of reminds me of the situation that Chadwick Boseman was in.
Yeah.
But the fact that these people are still willing to, pursue their dreams even when they're sick, they're not letting it hold them back. Yeah,
and what you find with high achievers is that's what it takes. You just keep chopping wood at it, and adversity is a part of life. So the older you get, like at some point you're gonna hit it, right? Most people feel it by the time they're 30. Like college is a great time, and you get out of college, and that period between you graduating from college to age 30, you're gonna get hit with some serious stuff, man. And the reason those guys accomplished everything they did, like Ron Rivera or Chadwick, was because they understood that you don't quit. You keep going after it. So I hear you on that, man. I think, Rivera's had a difficult offseason, not just personally, but hard job with everything going on in that organization. But he's trying to be the steady leader they need. And I thought that was a really big win for his program.
Oh, really is. So that's definitely a start for sure. I mean, there's a long season ahead of them, but so I really hope. I'm not even a Washington football team fan, but I'm always been, inspired by Ron Rivera, his history, and just there's people. There's one guy I actually know that's on that team right now. His name is Jordan Brailford. He's the same age as I am.
Oh yeah,
he's a pass rusher for those guys. They had a different, since they have a new system and everything, a new coach. He was telling me, because I did talk to him on my podcast back in May, and he was saying, this is COVID related, but prior to training camp and everything, they had him listed as, he was like half, he was like a hybrid, meaning that either an outside linebacker or a pass rusher, one of those two. So, but the last time I checked, there's this website I always use. It's called OurLads.com, where it has an update. Yeah. They update the depth charts for the NFL and NCAA. So it's like,
it's a real good website.
It is. It's really, I think it's credible. My dad's the one that told me about it about maybe 3-4 years ago. So I've been looking at it ever since.
Yeah, no, Our Lads is awesome. Yeah. And what were you saying about him?
Yeah, I was saying that he basically said that since they were moving positions with him, they probably switched him to an outside linebacker. I haven't checked the Our Lads, but I need to check it pretty soon to see where his status is. But I think I did check about a week ago. I didn't really see his name on the depth chart, but yet again, it wasn't updated. It was from the end of August. I'm like, they got to update that. The season already started. So I'm pretty sure they're rotating him around unless he got injured. But moving on to other topics, I noticed that it seems like people are already dogging the Dallas Cowboys. I know it's just week one, lost to the Rams. Yeah. And then it's just like you see the slander with Dak Prescott already. For crying out loud, this guy's gone through a lot of trials lately. He lost his brother to suicide back during the spring. And then it's like he's gone through a lot. You already heard, high status or high profile sports media, personalities like Skip Bayless say stuff like, basically he expressed his opinion on Dak Prescott. We already know what he said, talking about how he called him weak, whatever, for saying that he was not willing to, speak out or work out with the team when he was going through depression. That was Skip Bayless's opinion. In my opinion, I believe that was really wrong for him to say that. That's just not right. Especially being in a situation like that. Depression is real for people. It's real. And, especially losing a brother. Come on now. I just felt like that was a terrible idea for Skip to say something like that.
I think 2020 hasn't been like a great year in a lot of ways. But one thing that I have been heartened by is that there does seem to be more compassion and empathy for mental health in general. One person can say, Skip said that, but there were a lot of people who really rushed to Dak's defense. And I honestly don't know if that would have happened 10 years ago or 20 years ago. I feel like there's more of an understanding that mental health issues are real and that needs to be respected and understood. Now, we're clearly not where we need to be, just like there are a lot of areas we're not where we need to be. But in general, it was really good to see people really step up to defend him because, he lost a brother. And, kudos to Dak for being honest about that because everybody's going through something. You don't know what somebody's struggles are. And I think it's really helpful to hear that, the young, rich, popular quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys, and he's going to be a multi-millionaire when he gets his extension, but he's already a rich guy. It's still mental health still affects him. That's something that's pretty heartening to somebody who's dealing with it, who doesn't have those things. So, kudos to Dak for being honest about it. And I actually was happy to see a lot of people step up to defend him because I think that is one positive that you can kind of take from it.
Oh, exactly. I mean, that was very well said. I mean, that guy, I mean, like you said, kudos to him. And plus, I mean, it's a long season ahead, so who knows how the Cowboys will end up. But you know how people love to trash the Dallas Cowboys. And then now, as far as the Cowboys, I mean, I think, here's another thing. They have injuries too. I mean, Blake Jarwin was rolled out. I mean, he tore his ACL, I believe. I could be wrong. I think he did get severely injured. I can't remember what the exact status was, but apparently he's ruled out for the rest of the season. I'm like, the season just started. And then you look at, I mean, Leighton Vander Esch, again, like he's like, you know, a little bit banged up. So it's like, it is a long season, but it just seems like this year, maybe I haven't been paying attention like carefully. Like, I mean, I do pay attention to football, don't get me wrong, but it just seems like, as far as injury status, it just seems like this year alone, it seems like more players are actually, or more star players are getting injured. Like you saw Von Miller, he's out. And you see, I mean, we already mentioned Blake Jarwin. I mean, he's a rising star for crying out loud because he was able to replace Jason Witten, knowing that he's with the Raiders now. So it's like, well, Michael Thomas is another guy that got injured. So it's like, it just seems like there's more injuries involved with star players, maybe because they're not as in shape as they are, you know, right now compared to last year, because obviously COVID was in the way. There was a hiatus. They couldn't really, you know, go to gyms or work out. They had to work out at home for a little bit. And it's just, there was no preseason. So it's like, maybe I could be wrong, but like from what I've seen, it just seems like that's the reason why a lot of players are getting hurt.
Well, I think there was going to be more injuries this year because they didn't have the off season. Like they were able to still have like meetings, but because of COVID, they had to cancel the on-field work. So there was no buildup really at all up until they got to camp in August. And typically, you know, you have the 2 months of like no pads in May and June, and you kind of work your way in the field shape. And then you start hitting, and then you have like real preseason games, and there's like a real nice accumulation of physicality. But they haven't had that this year. So I think that's why you're going to see more injuries this year. There's always a lot of injuries, but I do think it'll be an uptick just like it was in 2011 when they had the CBA issues. So, no, I don't think you're crazy for wondering about that. I think we're going to continue to see guys hurt, but we have seen them expand the practice squads. They've loosened some of these rules to allow more players to get kind of around the team so more guys can step in if needed. And in that way, I think the league's done a nice job planning for the future because if it does come down to more guys getting hurt, they have more guys that can step in. The most important thing, Mark, is that these games get played so they get their TV money, at least to them. Like, that's what's important to them. And the players, too, because they want the money, too. So they're trying to finish the season, man. And we're actually off to a pretty good start.
That's true. I mean, so far it's worked out. I mean, I saw that a lot of stadiums, like especially in week one, a lot of those teams that had no fans at all in the stands. It kind of reminded me of, you know, Major League Baseball where they had like cardboard fans like cut out. But we saw that Kansas City had fans, and I saw a headline on Twitter about Houston is supposed to have thousands of fans supposedly in these next coming home games at NRG Stadium. And I was thinking, whoa, really? I thought I was a little bit shocked about that because you look at the MLB, there's no fans at all. There's no fans of any games, and they're having like a bubble type of playoff system. So it's like, well, it's too early for that for the NFL because like they're just getting started. And plus, I mean, it's going to be hard to to conduct a bubble type of situation with the NFL, knowing that there's a lot of teams and there's way too many players on each roster. So it's like when you look at it, it just, I'm not going to say it's a political thing or anything, but it just seems like a lot of teams like within the southern area, like as in Houston, for example. But I was surprised that the Saints had no fans in the stands. Now, NRG Stadium, they plan to do it. We already know what Jerry Jones thinks about having fans. And it's like –
they're going to have a lot of them too.
Yep.
Like
so
20,000 or something. They're going to have a bunch.
So it's just maybe I'm getting too far ahead of myself, but when you look at all the QBs and everything, like how do you feel about Tom Brady knowing they're coming off a loss to the Saints? I mean, it looked like it was almost a blowout in a way. I mean, it just looked like he couldn't get his offense going, and then the Saints were just rolling. Even and Michael Thomas didn't even have a good game, crying out loud, compared to like if you look at his stats from like the previous seasons, he wasn't really the main go-to guy. It was Alvin Kamara had a spectacular game. So there's always, like you said, there's a lot of guys that can fill that void of, because it's not like it doesn't regard to maybe one player showing out like it did in the 50s and the 60s, maybe even the 70s. But now there's so many talented players that there's always somebody that can replace you. Somebody gets hurt, like, for example, Blake Jarwin. So that means the third guy coming in, maybe he can shine. You never know.
Right. Yeah, so I think Tampa's going to be all right. I'm still bullish on them. I think they'll be fine. It was always going to be a bit of a ramp up for them because, again, Tom missed those OTA on-field reps that would have really helped him build timing and a rapport with his receivers. But there's a lot of talent there. They face Carolina. They're going to win this week. They'll be fine. I think New Orleans is going to be interesting, though, because if Michael Thomas doesn't play, that's an interesting game against a Raider team that's looking to prove itself here now. Like, their offense is pretty spunky, and we know their offense is decent, but their defense has some young guys that are looking to prove themselves too. And, Drew Brees wasn't great, and Michael Thomas, that offense revolves around him. Now, Alvin Kamara is great, but it's a lot easier to stop Alvin Kamara when Michael Thomas isn't out there. So at that point, I'd expect the Raiders to be able to take away Alvin Kamara. And then it's going to come down to, can Taysom Hill, can Emmanuel Sanders, and Traquan Smith win their individual matchups, Jared Cook? If they can't, the Raiders can win this game. So I think it'll be a fascinating game. I'm looking forward to it personally. I think it's going to be fun. I'm definitely going to be watching that closely, but definitely a statement game for the Raiders without Michael Thomas out there.
Oh, it really will. And plus, like, Josh Jacobs, this is his second year starting that running back. Like, I really want him to do well. I mean, his story is it really stands out. And he had a good game in game one. So it's like he's going against a real challenger because New Orleans, their defense looks pretty solid. I mean, they were able to slow down or, they were able to contain the offensive, power that the Buccaneers had. Because, like you said, Tom, he's new. Fairly new to the team. It's like, Leonard Fournette just got there. And, Ronald Jones II has, like you said, he needs to build rapport with his receivers and have chemistry involved because he's been part of the same team prior to this one for 20 years. So it's like, we'll see how it goes. Like, and plus, I think every matchup is different too. I mean, you can just way you watch football, every match, you can, for example, say the Saints blew out the Cowboys 51-14, and say they play against the Eagles, and you're like, oh, the Eagles are not that much better than the Cowboys, and then say the Eagles were able to blow out the Saints. I mean, that's very possible. So it's like you barely ever see blowouts all the time in the NFL, but it does happen. We've seen it happen between the Ravens and the Browns. That's a whole different story. But yeah, so it's like you're right about this. It's all about matchups. But so out of all the games coming up in week 2, which one do you think is the most important one besides the Raiders and the Saints?
Well, Seahawks-Patriots is going to be pretty awesome here. I'm looking forward to that. Obviously, Cam versus Jamal Adams is going to be great. But here's a sneaky one for you. Vikings-Colts. Those are two teams that had real expectations entering this season, and they're both 0-1. And starting 0-2 is typically a death knell for your playoff hopes. So one of these teams is starting 0-2, unless it's a tie. This is going to be a very important game for both of them. I want to see Phillip Rivers get on a winning track after an unacceptable loss to Jacksonville, and I want to see the Vikings defense play better after they got ripped to shreds by Aaron Rodgers. This is a gut check time for both teams, okay? Both these teams have to show up. Both these teams need to win. The team that doesn't is going to be in trouble.
Oh, that's. I mean, I can't argue with that. I'm just looking forward to seeing what happens because, I like I said, it's kind of hard to make. It's really hard to determine who's extremely powerful. But now, but besides that, if you look at, except for now, these are teams in my opinion that are exceptions. The Chiefs, they're an exception. They're going to be good regardless. The Ravens, that's another exception. They're really good, and it looks like teams like maybe the Saints could be an exception. Who knows? And then maybe the Packers could be an exception. And the way the Seahawks, the way they played against Atlanta, maybe they're an exception, right? So it's like I said, it's early, but those teams, in my opinion, they look like they're the exception because they just seem like they're well coached and they seem like they all play together well. The chemistry is very there. It's like you can tell that team has a lot of camaraderie. So but you look at teams like the Cleveland Browns, you can't just say, oh, they're going to be the best team this year. No, that's not happening, right? Mm-hmm. It's pretty obvious. Plus, there's a new coach that they got Stefanski. It just who knows what's going to happen. It just it's hard to put faith and trust into teams that have struggled with mediocrity throughout the past few years. And I hate to say that about the Browns, but
yeah. No, that's okay. They got to show you. It's good. They know they got to show us too.
Exactly. So I know you're on a time crunch, so I want to ask you one last thing. So do you have any additional takes or anything you'd like to share before we end this?
I've enjoyed the caliber of play so far in football this year, especially with no preseason games. I thought it was a great weekend of football coming. And I think the stars are really going to shine because, guys like Lamar, Mahomes require extra preparation, and teams haven't really been able to drill it the way they ordinarily would because of the offseason. So whether it's Russell Wilson or Lamar or Mahomes or Deshaun or any of these guys, expect them to have the seasons they typically would have, because stopping the great players is going to be even harder with the lack of preparation teams have had coming into the season.
All right, I can take that for sure. So once again, ladies and gentlemen, that's Terez Paylor, the NFL insider, or you can also call him the senior NFL writer. That's his real title for Yahoo Sports. And then also check out his podcast. Go ahead and give the listeners your podcast, or give a shout out to your podcast and your Twitter handle, all your social media handles.
Yeah. You can find me on Twitter at Terez Paylor. And also you can find the Yahoo Sports NFL podcast, which I host twice a week on Apple, Spotify, and a whole bunch of different things. So just type in Yahoo Sports NFL podcast. It'll come right up.
Oh, you already know I subscribe. I subscribed the day you told me about it. So, I'm already subscribed. But, so for everybody else that heard that, you better subscribe, because this man, like I said, he's an expert. So definitely listen to his podcast. They're really good. They're very, very informative. It's also entertaining at the same time. So definitely check it out. And once again, Terez, I appreciate you coming on, and you have a great week.
All right, you too, man. Take care.